Hey students, this is Mr. Pans. I'm going to show you how to complete this divisibility worksheet. First of all, we know that there are two strategies that you can use. One, it's understanding and knowing these divisibility rules. It's on the worksheet right there. So if you understand these rules and you know how to use them, feel free to do it because knowing these rules will actually get you the answers quicker. However, if you're still working on memorizing these divisibility rules, we know that we can use a calculator to check for divisibility. Understanding that if I divide the larger number, which is all of these numbers over here, by the smaller number, which is our divisor up at the top, checking to see if it's divisible by those numbers, and I do not get a remainder, that means it's an exact whole number, which means this number over here is divisible by one of these numbers at the top. However, if I get a remainder, that means I do not have an example of divisibility. The best way for me to show you is actually starting by example. Let me start by taking 15 and checking for the divisibility of 2. So I need to take 15, plug it into the calculator. Why? Because we remember that the steps for checking divisibility are taking the largest number first and then dividing it by the smallest number that I'm checking to see if this number is a factor of that number or if this number is divisible by 2. So I'm going to hit the INT, divide by 2, and check for a remainder. My answer is 7 remainder 1, which means I leave this blank or I just circle it because 2 cannot evenly go into 15 without a remainder. I do not get an exact whole number. But let's check 3. Now I need to see, can 3 go into 15? Or is 15 divisible by 3? If you forget the divisibility rules, you can check them at the bottom of this worksheet, or use your calculator to see if it's divisible. How do we do that again? Plug in your largest number, which again is 15, and divide that using the INT divide button on your calculator by the smallest number, which in this case is 3 because we're checking to see if 3 is a factor of 15. And when I plug it in, I get 5 as an exact whole number with a remainder of 0. So I give myself a check mark at 3. And I move on to the next number. Is 4 a factor of 15? Let's check. Plug in 15. INT divide by 4 equals 3 remainder 3, which means I do not have divisibility. I take 15, INT divide by 5 because it's the next number. And when I plug it in and look at my calculator, I get 3, which is an exact whole number without a remainder, so I check it off. Now, the reason I said that using your divisibility rules could be beneficial is because if you look down here at the divisibility rule for 5, it tells me that if the last digit in the dividend number, this large number over here, is either a 0 or 5, then it is divisible by 5. So rather than plugging all of those numbers into the calculator, all you had to do was look in the ones category where there is a 5, recognize that it's either a 5 or a 0, which tells you that 5 is a factor of 15, or in other words, 15 is divisible by 5. I'm going to check the remaining numbers on this worksheet for the number 15. The next one is 6. Take your largest number 15, INT, divide by 6. I get 2.5. If you get a decimal like I have here, that means that you just hit the divide button and not the INT divide button. Don't panic. 2.5 or 2 5/10 means that you would have a remainder. You just accidentally hit the divide instead of INT divide. Let me show you. If I do 15 INT divide by 6, I do get a remainder of 3, which means this is not divisible. Check 15 again. Is 8 a factor of 15? Well, when I check and divide by 8, it is not because I have a remainder. I do not get an exact whole number. Check 9 and 10. 15 INT divided by 9, 1 remainder 6. It is not a factor. How about 10? Take 15 INT divide by 10. I get a remainder. That means 10 is not a factor. 15 is not divisible. So now I need to just total up all of the numbers that are divisible. 3 is a factor, and so is 5. And I move on to the next number, which would be 16. I check for divisibility for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, and 10 until I've completed every single one. If you're still working on this at the end of the station, you've probably done it correct. If you get it done quickly, then you may want to go back and double check. If you're confused, re-watch this video. Students are coming in, so I gotta go. Talk to you soon.